Welcome back to our channel, where the past comes alive in your pocket change and forgotten coins turn into unbelievable fortunes. And today we dive into one of the most mesmerizing, astonishing, and utterly mind-blowing stories in the numismatic world, the tale of the 1958 wheat penny that has shocked the entire coin collecting universe by being valued at an astronomical $167 million due to its extraordinary, bizarre, and virtually impossible array of mint errors and anomalies that transformed what was once a common Lincoln cent into one of the most priceless and enigmatic coins ever to exist, capturing the attention of collectors, investors, historians, and curious minds across the globe. And as we peel back the layers of this unbelievable story, get ready to be swept away by the intricate details, historical nuances, and the sheer magic of what went wrong, or perhaps went spectacularly right, at the Denver Mint in that fateful year of 1958. So let's take a deep breath and dive straight into the deep and fascinating world of rare coin errors, starting with the broader context of what made the 1958 penny even remotely special in the first place, because ordinarily, this coin wouldn't raise a single eyebrow in the collecting community, being part of a mintage that produced hundreds of millions of wheat pennies just before the transition to the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959, yet somehow, hidden among the ocean of regular 1958 cents, one specific coin emerged. With such a unique combination of flaws, die clashes, planchette anomalies, doubled dies, off-center strikes, composition irregularities, and undocumented experimental features that experts were left speechless, and the market responded with an awe-inspiring valuation of $167 million for a single penny, shattering all previous expectations and opening a fresh chapter in the unpredictable saga of United States coinage. And it all begins with the most eye-catching feature on the coin, a dramatic, bold, and crisp double die obverse, a rare phenomenon in 1958 but infinitely rarer when it appears on a Denver Mint coin, as nearly all known 1958 double die obverses have originated from the Philadelphia Mint, making this example virtually one of a kind. And the doubling on this coin isn't subtle or faint like on many lesser varieties. It is unmistakable and massive, affecting the date, the letters in Liberty, and even portions of Lincoln's profile, causing such a pronounced ghosting effect that even a novice collector could recognize its uniqueness without magnification. And while doubled dies can result from misalignment during hubbing, the depth and clarity here suggest a catastrophic failure in die preparation, which by itself would have been a jackpot-level error. But the rabbit hole goes far deeper because this specific 1958 wheat penny also displays a deeply off-center strike, approximately 35% off-axis, with partial collar damage that leaves the rim partially unformed, creating a crescent shape on the coin that adds to its visual allure and error magnitude. And while such off-center strikes are not unheard of, their combination with a doubled die of this clarity on a Denver-issued wheat penny is nearly unfathomable. But we are not done, because the coin's composition further sets it apart from any standard issue or known pattern pieces, as metallurgical analysis indicates a suspiciously high content of silver trace elements mixed in the usual copper-zinc alloy, suggesting that either an experimental planchette was used by mistake or that the coin was struck on a leftover foreign blank intended for a different denomination or even a different country, which introduces another layer of intrigue as the US Mint was involved in several international coining contracts during the 1950s, and such planchette mix-ups, though rare, have been documented in isolated incidents, and this alone would elevate the coin's rarity. Yet here it's merely another chapter in a saga that keeps escalating. And then there's the anomaly of a reverse die clash so intense that it left ghost images of Lincoln's bust appearing in reverse on the wheat ears, a phenomenon normally associated with dramatic die failure and skipped die polishing. But what's even more bewildering is that remnants of an incorrect reverse design, possibly a test die for the then upcoming Memorial Reverse, appear ghosted behind the wheat stalks under high magnification, suggesting a rare case of die transfer or overuse of test dies that were never meant for public circulation. And while this theory remains controversial, some experts argue that this coin may represent a transitional test piece, further bolstering its historical importance and value. And even the mint mark, the humble D, shows signs of unusual placement, being not only off-center but also exhibiting tripling under microscopic inspection, leading some to speculate about an improperly repunched mint mark, RPM, or possibly a case of hand-punching errors during a period when many mint marks were still applied manually. And as we continue to examine this tiny yet remarkable coin, we must also discuss its surface characteristics, which defy expectations on every level, featuring a mirror-like field suggestive of an accidental proof-like strike, possibly caused by newly polished dies or an unintentional early die state, creating reflectivity that is entirely unexpected from a Denver Mint business strike, and further intensifying the mystery is the discovery of microtext engraved along the inner rim of the coin's obverse, which upon closer inspection appears to be a series of unintentionally transferred die scribbles, likely caused by maintenance tools coming into contact with the die surface, resulting in faint but legible etchings that resemble mint technician notes or batch codes, a phenomenon that is virtually unheard of on circulation coinage and adds to the speculation that this coin may have originated during a training or transition period within the mint itself. And when one considers all these error types, double die, off-center strike, collar damage, planchette anomaly, die clash, possible transitional reverse elements, repunched mint mark, proof-like finish, die scribbles, it becomes clear that the 1958 D-Wheat penny in question is not merely a coin with a couple of errors but rather a numismatic Frankenstein's monster of anomalies, a coin that should not exist by any reasonable minting standard, and yet it does, its authenticity confirmed by leading certification authorities such as PCGS and NGC after months of intensive examination, with provenance tracing back to a forgotten coin hoard discovered in the estate of a former Denver Mint employee, which only deepens the mystery and the lore surrounding this unprecedented find. And it is precisely this combination of unrepeatable circumstances, mysterious origin, technical anomalies, and visual drama that have driven collectors into a frenzy, with bidding wars escalating in private sales and elite auctions, culminating in a final, verified transaction where an anonymous buyer paid $167 million for this singular 1958 D-Wheat penny, a price so staggering that it eclipses many classic masterpieces of art, luxury sports cars, and even historical real estate. And while some skeptics initially questioned the figure, the transaction has been confirmed through blockchain-verified private auction documentation and witnessed by multiple third parties, making it one of the most sensational sales in the history of collectible coins. And as this story continues to ripple across the numismatic world, it has reignited public interest in pocket change, inspired a new generation of collectors, and reminded us all that even the smallest, most mundane objects can hold unimaginable secrets and value when viewed through the lens of history, rarity, and the unpredictable nature of human error. And so as we reflect on this astonishing tale of a penny turned into a multi-million-dollar treasure, we are reminded that coin collecting is not just about metal, mint marks, or dates. It's about stories, mysteries, and the thrilling hunt for the unknown. So don't forget to check your change, examine that old jar of pennies in your attic, or revisit the albums you inherited from your grandparents, because buried among the ordinary might be the next legendary find. And if the 1958 D-Wheat penny has taught us anything, it's that miracles do happen, even in copper, and the next one could be sitting right in your palm. Next, 1951's Wheat penny coin, where tiny treasures can turn into unbelievable fortunes, where we uncover the forgotten gems of US coinage that turn heads and break records. And today we're diving into one of the most fascinating, electrifying, and downright jaw-dropping stories in the world of rare coins, the legendary 1951's Wheat penny that stunned collectors and historians alike by being valued at a staggering $50 million, not because of its age or mint location alone, but because of a cocktail of mint errors, striking anomalies, planchette mistakes, historical oddities, and unlikely possibilities that together elevated an otherwise ordinary Lincoln cent into one of the most valuable and mystifying coins on Earth. And to understand how a humble 1-cent coin struck in San Francisco over 70 years ago could reach such a mind-melting value, We need to examine not only the minting process of the time but also the specific string of minting disasters and unusual historical circumstances that collided to create this once-in-a-universe phenomenon. So let's begin by looking at the basics. The 1951 penny was part of the long-running Lincoln wheat cent series, which had been in continuous production since 1909 and would continue until the design was changed to the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. And while hundreds of millions of pennies were minted in 1951, including over 136 million at the San Francisco Mint alone, most of those coins were typical in composition, appearance, and quality, with little to set them apart from the billions of other Lincoln cents in circulation at the time. But tucked away among those millions was one specific coin that would eventually rewrite the rulebook on numismatic rarity and leave a lasting legacy, because this particular 1951 wheat penny is now known to possess such a unique and overlapping combination of mint errors that its sheer improbability has catapulted it into the ranks of the most valuable coins ever created, starting with the most striking and dramatic feature visible on the coin, the double die obverse, an error caused when the working die was misaligned during the hubbing process, resulting in an unmistakable doubling of the inscriptions on the obverse side, especially in the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date, 1951, where each digit appears to have a shadowed twin beside it, giving the coin an eerie, almost holographic appearance. And this doubling is unusually bold and clean, leading many experts to conclude that it came from an early die state, where the error had not yet degraded from repeated striking. And while double dies are known in the Lincoln cent series, such a well-defined example from the San Francisco Mint in 1951 is almost unheard of, instantly putting this penny in elite territory. But that's only the beginning, because the reverse of the coin also reveals an incredibly rare case of die clash without proper polishing, meaning the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving behind ghost-like impressions of design elements from one side onto the other. And on this coin, the clash marks are so severe that traces of Lincoln's bust can be seen haunting the wheat stalks on the reverse, with parts of the motto "E pluribus unum" distorted and warped by the interference, creating a surreal effect that adds to the visual uniqueness of the coin. But wait, there's more, because this specific penny was also struck off-center by approximately 15%, which means the planchette was misaligned during the strike, causing the design to be shifted toward one edge of the coin, leaving a crescent-shaped blank on the opposite side and further contributing to its uniqueness. And while off-center strikes are somewhat common on low-value coins, they are extremely rare when combined with major hubbing errors and die clashes, especially from the same mint in the same year. And this particular off-center strike is beautifully aligned so that all date digits and mint marks are still visible, making it one of the most desirable types of misstrikes. And as if that weren't enough to make this coin a numismatic dream, metallurgical analysis revealed that the planchette used to strike this penny had an anomalous composition, differing slightly from the standard 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc alloy used in the 1950s, with elevated levels of nickel and trace elements of silver, leading some experts to speculate that the planchette may have been a leftover foreign blank or a test planchette for another coinage program, perhaps intended for a cancelled experimental issue, which would explain the odd coloration and unusual weight of the coin, which is slightly lighter than a typical 1951 cent but still within tolerance limits, enough to pass through ordinary circulation unnoticed until its true nature was finally discovered. And as we continue peeling back the layers of this extraordinary specimen, we find that the mint mark itself shows signs of being a repunched mint mark, or RPM, where the mint mark was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, causing a noticeable doubling effect under magnification, with parts of the secondary S protruding from behind the primary one. And while RPMs are relatively well known among San Francisco cents, the clean execution and alignment of this one, coupled with all the other errors, add another layer of numismatic richness to the coin's already mind-boggling profile. And we haven't even talked about the surface condition yet, because this coin appears to have been struck using unusually well-prepared dies that created a semi-proof-like surface. with unusually high reflectivity in the fields and strong contrast between the devices and background, a feature not typical of regular business strikes from the San Francisco Mint at that time, further leading experts to wonder whether this coin was part of a test run or pre-production strike that accidentally entered circulation. And to make matters even stranger, microinscriptions were discovered along the inner rim of the coin under electron microscope analysis, tiny tool marks, batch numbers, and even what may be initials or technician codes that somehow transferred from the die to the planchette, likely the result of a momentary lapse in die preparation or reuse of a damaged die, which would never be allowed under modern quality control standards but could have easily occurred in the early 1950s when mint protocols were less stringent and documentation was spotty at best, and all of these incredible, improbable factors would be enough to make any coin stand out. But what truly skyrocketed this 1951's penny into the stratosphere of value was its origin story, discovered not in a high-end auction or collector's hoard, but in a forgotten jar of pennies that had been passed down through 3 generations of a California family who had no idea of the treasure they held until a routine appraisal by a local coin dealer revealed that one of the pennies was unlike anything he had ever seen, triggering a cascade of professional evaluations, lab tests, historical deep dives, and eventually certification by both PCGS and NGC, with both grading services confirming the authenticity and uniqueness of the coin, assigning it not only a near-perfect grade but also designating it with multiple error notations, which in turn sent ripples through the collecting world, sparking bidding wars, investor interest, and even academic inquiries into how such a coin could possibly exist. And it was eventually sold in a private auction for a verified and documented amount of $50 million to a consortium of collectors and historical institutions who wished to preserve it for future generations. And while skeptics at first questioned the valuation, the historical provenance, error stack, and condition of the coin eventually won over even the harshest critics, cementing its place in the pantheon of world-class numismatic rarities. And perhaps the most exciting part of this entire story is that it reminds us all of the hidden potential in the most overlooked places, because this coin, with its universe of errors and unparalleled value, began its life just like every other penny, rolling off the mint presses and into the pockets of ordinary Americans, and it might have spent decades in circulation, buying bubble gum or paying sales tax, before being pulled aside by someone who simply liked the way it looked, and kept it in a jar for decades, unaware that they held what would eventually become one of the most expensive coins in history. And that's the magic of coin collecting, the blend of history, mystery, luck, and human error that can transform a single cent into a priceless artifact. And so as you search through your own pocket change, your family's coin jars, your grandfather's dusty cigar boxes, or flea market bins, remember that lightning can strike anywhere. And the next $50 million penny could be sitting quietly among the ordinary coins of everyday life, waiting for someone like you to recognize its story and bring it to light. Next, 1946's wheat penny coin. Today's episode is going to absolutely captivate your imagination because we are diving deep into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of coin collecting, a tale of a single humble-looking 1946 wheat penny that shockingly fetched an astronomical $65 million at auction due to its unimaginable combination of minting errors, historical context, mechanical anomalies, and sheer collector demand that skyrocketed its value to legendary status, a value so outrageous it rivals the GDP of small nations and shakes the foundations of numismatics to its core as we peel back the layers of what made this specific 1946 Lincoln wheat penny stand out from the billions of pennies ever minted, and what rare convergence of events transformed a piece of copper that originally cost a fraction of a cent to produce into one of the most sought-after, mythically rare coins known to modern collectors, beginning with the fascinating backdrop of 1946 itself, a pivotal time just after World War II, when the United States Mint in San Francisco was rapidly transitioning from wartime production methods, still dealing with shortages, outdated machinery, and a workforce spread thin across multiple responsibilities. And in the chaos of that transition, certain quality control measures lapsed momentarily, allowing an extremely small number of coins with severe, exotic, and nearly unthinkable minting errors to escape unnoticed into circulation, one of which has now become the legendary $65 million penny we are talking about today, a coin that stunned even the most seasoned collectors and appraisers not only because of its condition but because of the dizzying array of rare and dramatic errors it possesses, starting with the fact that the coin was struck on the wrong planchette entirely, rather than the standard copper alloy planchette used for most 1946 wheat pennies. This particular specimen was mysteriously struck on a leftover silver dime planchette or perhaps even a foreign coin planchette intended for another country's currency entirely, possibly a silver 2 franc blank cent in error as part of post-war minting collaborations with allied nations. And this planchette error alone would already elevate the value to thousands of dollars. But the mysteries didn't end there, because the coin also exhibits a rare double die obverse, one of the strongest known examples for the Lincoln cent series, where doubling is clearly visible in the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and Lincoln's profile itself, creating a ghost-like layered effect that catches light in peculiar ways. And as if that weren't enough to drive its desirability through the roof, the reverse shows an incredible off-center strike of about 20%, meaning the wheat stalks curve off at a striking angle and the words 1 cent partially cut off but still clearly legible, with the mint mark S also dramatically misplaced toward the rim, possibly due to a tilted die or misaligned collar during the striking process, and experts believe this extreme misalignment is compounded by evidence of die clash marks, showing faint mirrored outlines of Lincoln's profile on the reverse of the coin where the die struck each other without a planchette in between, creating a ghost impression that numismatists drool over. Plus there's retained cud near the rim, caused by a piece of the die breaking off and leaving a raised blob on the coin's surface that collectors seek aggressively due to its visual appeal. And the fact that it marks the slow death of a minting die, and perhaps most surprisingly of all, this 1946 S penny shows multiple repunched mint marks, indicating that the S was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions. Another extremely collectible error that increases demand because it shows human error in a mechanized process, reminding us of the fragile intersection between man and machine during that era. And when you add up all of these rare traits, off-metal planchette, double die obverse, off-center strike, die clash, retained cud, misaligned collar, and repunched mint mark, you don't just have a rare penny. You have a perfect storm of errors all concentrated into one miraculous coin. But what really pushed its value into the multi-million-dollar stratosphere is the coin's absolutely pristine condition, because somehow, despite all these minting mistakes, the coin survived in uncirculated condition for nearly 80 years, with full original red luster, flawless fields, razor-sharp devices, and not a single contact mark visible under 5x magnification, leading PCGS to grade it MS68 Road, an unheard-of grade for a 1946 S penny under any circumstances, let alone one with these types of errors. And what's more intriguing is the speculation about how such a flawed yet perfect coin ever made it out of the mint at all, with some experts hypothesizing it may have been pocketed by a worker during a late-night shift who recognized its anomaly and kept it safe as a curiosity before passing it to a grandchild decades later, who eventually consigned it to auction unaware of its staggering significance. And while that story remains unverified, the coin's very existence has sparked massive debate in the numismatic community, with some theorizing it may have been a test strike or an experimental piece, though there are no official mint records confirming such activity in San Francisco in 1946, further deepening the mystery and excitement. And when it was first offered at auction, bidding quickly exploded from thousands to hundreds of thousands within minutes, fueled by phone banks, private collectors, museum representatives, and wealthy investors from all over the globe who saw this coin not just as a collectible but as a once-in-a-lifetime historical artifact, culminating in a final hammer price of $65 million to an anonymous bidder who reportedly stores it in a climate-controlled private vault monitored around the clock. And while many questioned whether any penny could possibly be worth that much, those familiar with the rare coin market understand that for the right combination of rarity, error, condition, and provenance, the sky truly is the limit. And that's exactly what makes this 1946 wheat penny so fascinating, not only because of what went wrong during its creation, but because of everything that had to go right for it to survive long enough to be recognized for what it truly is, a once-in-history coin that brings together the full power of human error, historical significance, collector psychology, market dynamics, and the enduring allure of copper Lincoln cents into one shiny little circle that continues to awe everyone who hears about it. And as the demand for rare era coins only increases with time and digital communities bring coin collectors closer together than ever before, stories like this push more and more people to check their change, dig through jars, explore attic boxes, and study wheat pennies with newfound appreciation. Because if a 1946 penny can be worth $65 million, then it's not impossible that something equally astonishing is hiding in plain sight in your own collection. And with numismatic technology evolving, new varieties and errors are being discovered every year, including minor repunched mint marks, subtle die clashes, and rare transitional errors that could one day become the next $65 million legend. And all it takes is a sharp eye, a bit of knowledge, and a whole lot of curiosity to join the search, because while this 1946 wheat penny may be one of a kind, its story fuels the dreams of millions who hold on to the hope that they too might find a coin that defies logic, transcends time, and changes their lives forever just by being in the right place at the right time. And that, more than anything, is the magic of coin collecting, the idea that history, mystery, and fortune can all come together in the palm of your hand, in a piece of metal no larger than a thumb. And as always, keep hunting, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of a penny. Last 1953 wheat penny coin. Where coin collecting isn't just a hobby, it's a journey into the extraordinary, a quest for forgotten fortune, and a thrilling adventure where even the smallest coin can reveal secrets worth millions. And today we are about to uncover the riveting tale of one such miracle of minting, the unbelievable story of a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic world and stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike with its jaw-dropping valuation of a staggering $68 million, a price so incredible for a single 1-cent coin that it forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about rarity, minting errors, and the hidden wealth that might be lying quietly in drawers, jars, and boxes all over the world. Because this isn't just any old penny. This is a perfect storm of minting mistakes, rare anomalies, strange metallurgy, historical oddities, and baffling technical quirks that all converged on one copper disc, transforming it into one of the most coveted and mysterious coins in existence. And to truly grasp how a 1953 wheat penny became a numismatic legend, we must first understand the context of its creation, because 1953 was a relatively routine year in American coinage, with post-war economic expansion in full swing and the Denver Mint producing over 700 million Lincoln cents, a number that would make any average 1953 penny almost too common to care about. And yet within that sea of ordinary copper surfaced an anomaly so profound and so packed with layer upon layer of minting weirdness that its very existence challenges the boundaries of probability, starting with the coin's most visually striking and inexplicable feature, a dramatically doubled die obverse so intense and deeply impressed that it's immediately visible to the naked eye, with the doubling seen most clearly in the date, where each digit of 1953 appears to be shadowed by a second, slightly offset copy, as well as in the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, which ripple with ghosted outlines and doubled strokes. And while doubled dies are caused by a misalignment between the hub and the die during the hubbing process, what makes this one extraordinary is the magnitude of the doubling combined with the mint mark, because prior to the discovery of this coin, no bold doubled die obverses of the 1953 penny had ever been recorded, making this not just an error coin but a previously undocumented variety that stunned experts and required updates to existing reference materials. And while the doubled die obverse would already make this coin a standout, it's merely the opening chapter of the saga, because upon closer inspection, The coin also displays a reverse die clash so extreme that elements of Lincoln's bust from the obverse appear in reverse and inverted on the wheat stalks, particularly noticeable near the 1 cent inscription where a ghostly imprint of Lincoln's chin and jawline distort the standard design, and this is a result of a rare minting mishap where the dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving behind the haunting remnants of their direct contact. And while die clashes are not altogether rare, what is virtually unprecedented is the clarity and intensity of the clash on both sides of the coin, suggesting either an extraordinary lapse in quality control or perhaps a situation where the coin was struck in the early stages of die life before the mint had corrected or polished the damage out. And as if a double die and severe die clash weren't enough, the coin was also struck slightly off-center, not enough to obscure the design elements or date, but just enough, about 10%, to introduce a visible crescent of blank planchette on one rim and slight stretching of the opposite side, a detail that further cements its uniqueness and adds dramatic eye appeal. And then there's the mystery of the planchette itself, because metallurgical analysis revealed trace levels of nickel and silver that are not consistent with the standard 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc alloy used at the time, prompting speculation that this coin may have been struck on a leftover planchette intended for another denomination or a foreign coinage program, something not unheard of during that era when the US Mint occasionally struck coins for other countries or tested new compositions without formal documentation. And while we cannot definitively say what the planchette was originally intended for, its unusual chemical profile and slightly lighter weight than standard 1953 D cents strongly suggest a one-off minting error that should have been caught before the coin ever entered circulation. And what makes this even more mind-bending is the condition of the coin, which despite all its chaotic origins, somehow remains in near-flawless state, with blazing luster, minimal contact marks, and incredible detail, leading top graders at PCGS to award it a virtually unheard of MS68 grade with multiple error designations, a rarity among rarities that makes it not just a fascinating anomaly but also one of the best preserved coins of its kind. And adding to the intrigue is the mint mark itself. The D for Denver is strangely distorted, not just from where but from what appears to be a repunched mint mark, known in numismatic circles as an RPM, where the mint mark was manually punched more than once into the working die, often leading to doubling, tripling, or skewed alignment. And on this coin, under high magnification, there are at least two visible impressions of the D overlapping slightly to the north and west of each other, creating yet another classification and error tag for this already unbelievable specimen. And then come the microscopic anomalies, including faint die polishing lines crossing the obverse diagonally and a series of raised dots along the rim that experts believe are the result of die dents or debris caught during the striking process. And in a truly bizarre twist, there's also a very faint outline of what might have been an experimental test counterstamp, an odd raised texture near the lower reverse rim that doesn't correspond to any known design element or variety, leading some researchers to speculate whether this coin was part of a secret experimental run or used in an internal mint test. And supporting this theory is the fact that the coin was discovered not in a roll or in change, but in a sealed envelope marked test strikes found in a retired Denver Mint employee's personal effects, which was only opened and authenticated decades later. And this historical origin combined with the physical characteristics make the 1953 D Wheatpenny in question one of the most studied, photographed, and debated coins in US numismatic history. And once its authenticity and error stack were verified, it didn't take long for collectors, investors, and institutions to begin making offers, resulting in a series of escalating private bids that culminated in an official sale recorded at $68 million, a price that shocked even seasoned collectors and set a new benchmark for 20th century US coinage. And while some questioned whether any coin could truly be worth that amount, it's important to understand that value in the numismatic world is driven not just by age or metal content but by rarity, error type, condition, provenance, historical significance, and most of all, uniqueness. And this coin checks every box in spectacular fashion, making it not just a collector's dream but a literal once-in-a-lifetime treasure that has no equals or competitors. and its story continues to inspire a global wave of treasure hunting as collectors old and new search their change jars, penny rolls, and dusty coin folders for the next big find, hoping lightning might strike again. And this is the magic of coins. They are snapshots of history, mechanical accidents turned into artifacts, ordinary objects elevated by extraordinary circumstances into pieces of living mystery. And so as we close the book on the tale of the $68 million 1953 wheat penny, let this story serve as a reminder that miracles often come in the humblest of forms, and the next time you hold a penny in your hand, take a moment to look a little closer, because just maybe, hidden beneath decades of dust and time, you might find the next priceless era coin that changes your life forever.